Hello, I'm LeAlec Murray.
And I'm Leah President.
And I'm Nick Friedman. And this is Crunchyroll Presents The Anime Effect.
I'm LeAlec Murray. I am a brand manager for Crunchyroll, and I'm also a co-host for the Anime Effect podcast, but I am not an EP. That's you.
My name is Nick Friedman, and I am the Director of Multimedia at Crunchyroll, and I am also the co-host of the Anime Effect podcast and executive producer. Yeah, so this is a kind of a fun one. So our friends at Sony Music Podcast kind of came to us and were like, hey, we really love what you're doing with Crunchyroll News, which Crunchyroll News is one of the organizations that I manage as part of my role at Crunchyroll. And they were like, we think this would be really great for a podcast. And so we started developing a show that had news sort of at the forefront, like anime news, because there's always something happening in the anime community. And then from there, we were able to expand it with some of the inspiration from our features team, looking at interviews, looking at deep dives, and then of course, looking at the concept of special guests. And so in working with our partners at Sony Music, we determined that we had something.
Yeah.
We had something that was special, that was unique, that was kind of standalone in the space. I think there are a lot of anime podcasts out there, but this is kind of the newest and first to be like from the industry with fans who actually work at Crunchyroll. And so that was really important for us. And yeah, so it went from just kind of an idea that we went through discovery on, and 8 months later, it was a real thing.
We put news in the forefront because news is always going to be important to anime, especially because it happens so quickly. And it's a great opportunity for us to be able to say, hey, here's what's coming, like put this on your radar, like here's some cool concerts that are coming.
And if you're new to anime and you start listening to our show, you can start to see the different ways in which news happens, and you can sort of align with the things that interest you.
Yep. But I mean, we've had a ton of great guests already. I mean, we had Lisa, we had Man with the Mission. Yep. We've got great stuff coming for Evo, which I'm really hype about.
Interviews that we banked at Anime Expo this year with some really, really special guests.
SDCE is coming up for us as well too. We're gonna have some a surprise for SDCC as well.
That's in like 4 days.
It's in 4 days.
So tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, and one of the big focuses of as far as segments, like we have news, obviously. We have a main story every week. It could be an interview. It could be a deep dive. It could be
Mailbag,
right? We have Oops All Mailbag, where we just read fan questions. We also have a recommendation section, which happens every week, to where the hosts or the special guests or the guest hosts, we all recommend an anime or something else that we've been watching or playing or reading or listening to, and then we have fans write in their recommendations. So we've actually gotten onto a number of shows because fans have been like, oh, you have to watch this. And then we talk about that on the show.
Yeah,
so.
And the recommendations have been great because it does allow for, stuff that may be in our blind spot or stuff that fans have that are in their blind spot. Like, it allows us to create like a really cool like synergy.
And an open dialogue.
Yeah, and it's an open dialogue.
Right? We're approachable.
Yeah.
We're just a couple of guys.
Yeah, we're just a couple of guys talking about the Seventh Prince too much. The most fun part?
I just love hanging out with you
guys.
I get to hang out
That's
like the best part.
I get to hang out with Nick and Leah every week. That's the best part.
And Leah's not here at Evo with us, but Leah is like the heart and soul of the show. Like, I've never laughed more than when Leah just makes just like a random sound or a joke in the middle of recording, and we're just like, we have to pause for 5 minutes because we're laughing so hard.
We are just a complete unhinged group. But yeah, no, I love, our dynamic. I love our chemistry. I mean, and it shows because, fans really get into it. And some of them start to pick sides, like, they like, but then also, like, it's cool, because I think it makes us feel like, we're creating, like, moments for people too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the other best part is just like seeing the impact that it can have for fans and other people in the industry. Like, it's one thing to just hang out with your friends and talk in a room, and we happen to get to do that at work as part of our job. But getting to actually see the fan response in person, we saw it at Anime Expo earlier this month, it's validating, but it's also really heartening to show that, like, we are at least starting to accomplish our goal of creating this like really welcoming space for new anime fans,
For sure.
but also a place where if you've been in it, like you already know this is a place that you're welcome and can hang out.
Yeah, of course. Like, yeah, we want to make sure that like the barrier of entry is low for new fans, but then also
The skill ceiling is
skill
high.
ceiling is high for fans that have been around for a while. Like, we want to make it like a place for everybody.
Yeah.
Because that's how like, and that's the great thing about anime is that like, it's so welcoming, and like when you start putting those two groups together, you get a nice little like, people start finding stuff they may have never watched, or like they start interacting with each other.
And then of course, like having the connective pieces to, I mean, the reason why it's called the anime effect is because anime has these like touch points in all parts of culture. So you have music, you have gaming, you have sports, you have fashion. And I feel like that's really reflective in the guests that we've been able to have on the show.
For sure.
And you know, I'm happy if one person who loves Lisa's music, who's never watched anime, listens to our interview with her.
Right.
And decides to watch anime.
Right.
Like, that's a win, right? If someone who loves watching Jamal Williams play in the NFL
Football,
watches an anime because they love him, they watch the show, they're like, oh, I gotta try this out. Like, that's what it is all about.
For sure. Oh, that's a
I
good
feel like I
question.
have a yes and no. So, yes, in that it's not a surprise to me that something that meant so much to me personally when I was young, when it hits a critical mass, is able to mean that to literally millions and millions of people around the world. Like, that part's not surprising because the art and the storytelling and the talent and the community have always been there. The part that is surprising, I think, is just how quickly it can happen with the accessibility of streaming and home video and just that sort of exponential curve that we've seen. And it's surprising, but in the best way possible. That those moments that I wish that we had had when we were younger, you know, trying to convince family members to watch anime, trying to convince friends who might have been like, oh, you're weird, you watch anime.
You're the weirdo.
Like, now it's like, it's not just cool, it's part of culture. In the same way that there's hip hop culture, in the same way that there's sports culture, like there is anime culture, and it's not one singular thing.
Right. I think I'm gonna say no. Maybe if I had like a peek into the future, like in like all of the advents we have to be able to like watch anime now, I would have been like, yeah, totally. But I mean, as the kid that was in his little anime club, like us, like, oh hey, did you see Dragon Ball? Oh yeah, man. Hey, like, I'm and then you know eventually getting into manga and then like you know passing books around and stuff like that, man. Like, I never thought it would be more than the, hey, this is just something that a set type of people like. Or,
I mean, we
like,
felt that way about gaming.
Yeah, we felt that way about gaming too. And
for
look
FGC
where we are.
too. Like, we're literally in Las Vegas at EVO,
watching fighting
tens of
games.
thousands of people. Like, is it really that surprising?
I mean, but also I think, you know, because I didn't think it would.
Yeah.
It's great to see, you know, like it just unfold.
Oh yeah.
Because it's for us as like, you know, being like millennial fans, like our linchpin for anime was Toonami. Like that was something that was a core moment for a lot of us. But for newer anime fans, they didn't have that moment. Now their moments are Demon Slayer or Chainsaw Man,
Crunchyroll,
or you know, just Crunchyroll as a brand. So they have a different viewpoint, and I love that everybody has different viewpoints on how they got into anime, because it's like,
it makes us all better.
it makes it better just overall. So I'm glad that I thought back in the day that it would just never be this big thing.
You were like, it's just gonna be me, my Beyblades, and my Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Disc, and that's it.
Right. But I'm glad that now I can see, and we can go to an anime expo and it's just alive.
I mean, it's incredibly important. Like,
important.
The purpose of the anime effect is that anime is literally, and we mean this hard stance, for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, anime is for you. You can find it. But I think, and we work really closely with our marketing team for UCANS, which is like US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, but that also includes Hispanic,
Latin America.
yeah, like Latin America,
Brazil,
like in like the US and all of that. And so I think for us, recognizing the impact that anime has had on culture in Latin America, for, you know, there's Dragon Ball, there's Saint Seiya, there's Captain Tsubasa, like And I think another piece is like being honest and recognizing that, you know, me or you or Leah may not be the people, we're not the people to tell those stories.
Right.
And the Anime Effect allows us to create a platform where we can bring in those massive fans that are part of culture in Latin America.
And they can tell their story.
And they can tell their story. And we can, you know, be there to, you know, see that impact and grow that community. But it is really important, and this goes for our work on Crunchyroll News as well with features, is like, it's about platforming people who want to feel seen in the space to tell their own stories. And we do take that into the show. Yeah. And we actually have a number of things that we're working on right now for the rest of the year that I think fans in Latin America will be really excited about. No spoilers.
No spoilers. I mean, I can say that, you know, talking outside of the podcast, I can say that from, you know, a brand perspective too, because we realize how important just culturally anime is. So we've always been in the initiative of like, how can we get this in as many places as possible? Especially because
in the right way.
In the right way, right. Like where it feels good.
Well, because like you had mentioned, you know, for American fans, Toonami may have been the touch point, but you know, we were talking with someone who grew up in France. Yeah. And watching Dragon Ball on TV at 3 p.m. was that touch point. Yeah. Like the original Dragon Ball. Yeah. That's a different experience. Yeah. Right? Having Saint Seiya, which I wish that Saint Seiya was way bigger.
Saint Seiya was way bigger here.
But like having that be your touchstone, like you have to recognize that like those anime journeys are different. Right. But at the end of the day, they all factor into the same community.
And that's, you know, opens up a really big conversation too, because like, somebody that may have not watched Saint Seiya, but somebody who comes in and says, "Hey, you should watch this. Like, this is great, right?"
And you should watch.
You should watch Saint Seiya. Watch more Saint Seiya. Figure out what cloth you like, and then we'll talk. But yeah, no, I think it's so important, man. Yeah. Especially because, you know, somebody that, you know, looks at numbers all day, and you're like, "Oh, hey, this show is really big here. Like, maybe you should push that, right?" Yeah. So that's and that gives us a chance to like spread out on a company level, spread out on a podcast level, like, and it's important. I think it's important because I've always felt like, especially in anime, like it's really important for people to be able to tell their story and feel included, right? So. Yeah.